Nissan. From 2 is car number 10, Robbie Francevic of New Zealand in the Volvo. From 3 is 05, Peter Brock in the Mobile Commodore. From position 4, car 3, John Harvey in the Commodore. From 5, car 2, Graham Crosby of New Zealand in the Commodore. From 6, car 17, Queensland's Dick Johnson in the Mustang. From 7 is car 7, Charlie O'Brien in the BMW 635. From 8, car number 62, Jim Richards in the BMW 635. Then from 9, car number 25, Tony Longhurst in the BMW 325. From position 10, car number 23, Gary Rogers in the second of the BMW 325. And rounding out the 11, car number 16 is John Smith in the Toyota Corolla. Stand by for the start of round 2 of the Australian Touring Car Championship from Symmons Plains in Tasmania. The flag is up. They're racing, and George Fury zips off the starting line, and the Nissan Skyline gets away smartly indeed with Robbie Francevic coming up on the outside. Peter Brock made a good start, so too to Dick Johnson, who does a little shuffle here right behind the 2 Mobile Team Commodores. So Francevic drops to second. George Fury leads into Bramble's U-turn for the first time. There's Francevic. They were then followed by Peter Brock getting up on the inside of John Harvey. Then we've got Dick Johnson in the green Mustang stretching up on the inside of Harvey as they come down to the Goodyear sweeper.
Well, a tremendous start from George Fury in the Nissan. The car was terrific in yesterday's practice session. They seem to have cured their wheel bearing problems from last weekend at Amaroo Park, and Fury made it 2 out of 2 for pole position and has made an absolute blinder of a start in the opening lap. The car tends to get sideways a little, so George is going to have to be very careful with tyres. They're running Avons on the Nissan, but a most interesting vehicle. Across the top of the hunt for the first time, it's Francevic in second position, then Brock in the Mobile Commodore. And look at this, Fury getting the Skyline sideways. Reminiscent of his rally days, I would suggest. Then it's Johnson, then Brock, then Crosby, then Richards. And Richards has come up very well, as you can well see there in the background.
Sitting right in behind Graham Crosby. Here's Robbie Francevic, a little closer this time to George Fury in the Peter Jackson Nissan, number 30. To the Brambles U-turn. Brock is in third. Johnson is fourth. Harvey goes back 1 spot as they work down towards the Goodyear sweeper again. And here's Brock very, very close indeed. Looks like the bumper-to-bumper entry, BMW, in a spot of bother out there and parked on the side of the road.
Brock now having a lash at Francevic under brakes. But Robbie's got a very nice line for the corner and manages to close the gate once more, and all the time you can see that gap closing between these 2 cars in second and third and the leader George Fury.
Coming up to the Mazda hump, George Fury, the Albury Farmer. Francevic, there he is in second, the Mark Petch Volvo, and in third place Peter Perfect. And Dick Johnson joins the freight train in the green Mustang as they come under the bridge. The second lap completed. Crosby goes through as well. And here is Francevic. He gains all the time here on George Fury as they come up to Bramble's corner, and Brock is right on the pace with them.
The Francevic Volvo this weekend is running the engine that they used at the Wellington Street Race, the New Zealand engine as they call it, and it's got around about an extra 20 brake horsepower. And yesterday's qualifying from the Volvo may have been fractionally distorted because they used what's called a Pirelli D7 tyre, which is an extremely soft qualifying tyre. And now, as the car goes out on the D5 tyres, it's perhaps not quite as quick. But Brock really trying hard under brakes as they go for the left-hander at the end of the back straight. And again, the Volvo closer to the back of the Nissan. Look at Francevic. The machine gets sideways as he comes out of the left-hander. All using plenty of the road as they go across this bump. Some of the cars actually getting airborne yesterday as they fling them for the left-hander through the pits.
Here's George Fury coming up to the bridge. Francevic is right on his tail and will pull to the outside as they come down. Has he got enough to be able to beat him to the corner? He's on the wrong side, but Francevic still sitting in second and looking threatening at this stage. Peter Brock doing a fine job in third, sitting right behind those 2 turbocharged cars. And behind Peter Brock, of course, Dick Johnson in the Mustang, then John Harvey. Graham Crosby is the next one, followed by Richards, and then well back there to the 325s.
I'll be very interested to get the clocks on this time and see just how quickly they are circulating. Fury has managed to open up that gap just fractionally again over Francevic, and Francevic is a very busy boy at the moment because Brock is needling all the way. And the fellow that has done a remarkable job as well as Dick Johnson, because according to the way that he qualified, you would not have thought that he had a chance of keeping with the leaders, but he's right in there at the moment. And look at this as the 3 of them come back down towards the left-hander at A&L corner, and it's Fury.
Great scrap this Fury with Francevic tucked up here, just trying to get the line right as they come through the sweeper, back onto the start finishing straight and the run up to Bramble's corner. They're just marginally clear of Peter Brock and Johnson. So we have a great scrap going for the lead in the second round here at Symmons Plains. George Fury surrendered the lead to Robbie Francevic inside of probably 5 laps at Amaroo Park last weekend when he had problems. Today the car was looking very sharp and very strong through the Goodyear sweeper. There's the gap, first over second, and then of course the gap back from the Volvo to Peter Brock.
61.1 seconds for George Fury on that occasion. So about a second off his qualifying time, but very quick in race trim.
The Nissan team have been saying all week that they were setting the car up for qualifying in race trim. But of course, in the last few moments of the second session yesterday, George called the blitzer to take pole away from Robbie Francevic, who everyone thought will be sitting there and leading this race. But the new look Nissan Skyline, Peter Jackson entry running very strongly at this stage. Crosby still on the pace too. Sitting back behind them, they've managed to open up a bit of a gap over Jim Richards.
As a matter of curiosity, just to show you how far these Group A cars have come, Mike, the lap record here for touring cars is still held by Brock at a time of 58.51. So they've already got to within a second of those old Group C times in cars radically different.
There's George Fury in the Nissan, Robbie Francevic and Peter Brock to the Goodyear sweeper. And just how well that new Nissan Skyline sits on the road. It's doing everything it should under brakes, giving George Fury no anxious moments, and Robbie Francevic's car also looking strong at this stage.
The Nissan is a perfect equation on paper, about 320 odd brake horsepower and about 1,035 kilograms. Perfect power to weight ratios, and George Fury just the man to give it absolutely everything on this circuit. Fury, Francevic, a little bit more horsepower and a fraction more weight, but Robbie is rapidly becoming the man to beat in this Australian Touring Car Championship this year, driving with...
Oh, here he makes his move. Well, thought about it.
Well, and George covered. We can see just how quickly the Nissan got wide.
It's getting closer, Robbie Francevic, as they come along Castrol straight towards John Harvey in number 3, just coming up the outside of Dick Johnson to take away 4th spot, but they have quite a gaggle of cars battling for that 4th spot, let me tell you. There's John Harvey just in front. There's Dick Johnson tailed right to him, and not too far back behind them, Graham Crosby keeping the two of them quite honest.
Well, Crosby, in fact, is right behind Dick Johnson at the moment as they come down to this left-hander at A&L. And this has been a tremendous battle. You can see Brock in the distance. This is for 4th, 5th and 6th. And there's Crosby in the background. So there's Brock in 3rd, chasing the 2 turbo cars. And then we've got Harvey, and then Johnson, and then Graham Crosby.
Coming up to Bramble's corner. The rest of the field, you'll see, just exit the turn now. There's John Harvey dipping in. Dick Johnson is very, very close as they come out of here, but Harvey's car seems to have that horsepower edge as they go down the Castrol straight, and they'll swing right now into the Goodyear sweeper.
IG old halves are sliding around at the moment. And Crosby having a look on the inside.
Dick Johnson, of course, carrying our 7 race cam and being followed by a lot of Queensland viewers. You look like it's pretty busy out there, Dick.
Oh, mate, those Commodores, you know, they got more BHP than Robert Holmes the court.
Well, the turbocharged cars seem to be having their own little dice, and of course there's this next gaggle, including yourself.
Yeah, mate, but we're not out of it either.
No, long way to go. Francevic tailgating Fury at this stage. The car feel good?
Mate, the car feels real good. You know, it's really got the wood on the Commodores under brakes, but there goes another one.
That's Graham Crosby coming up.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Okay.
Sorry, Graham.
Yes, it narrows up coming out of there, doesn't it?
Not wrong, especially when he's on the outside.
Okay, this is where horsepower comes into play, obviously.
Yeah, 1 horsepower, haven't got me.
That's terrible. He even waved at you.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like everyone's trying to set a breakneck pace for this race, Dick.
Yeah, well, we'll just sit back. They'll have their problems, maybe.
All right, we'll let you continue. Thanks for the chat. We'll come back to you later.
Don't worry.
It's Dick Johnson. As you see, Dick trailing Crosby as they drop down into the left-hander here, the tight one. Let's have a look what's happening back in the lead. George Fury still there, but getting closer is Robbie Francevic, and he pulls to the outside. just to let George know he's there and still very, very competitive. Great scrap. Fury, the Nissan Skyline, Robbie Francevic, the Turbo Volvo. And the team, of course, last year, the Mark Petch team that did the Australian Touring Car Championship as privateers with very, very little financial support from sponsors. And I would think in the next 7 days we're going to hear of an announcement that will keep Francevic and the Petch team very, very competitive throughout 1986, because I think, according to the rumours, they've landed a big sponsor. And that's going to make life a little easier for Robbie Francevic behind the wheel. At the moment, though, he's working on George Fury. Fury still continues to lead. Here's the scrap. It's getting closer. Brock just lurking in the background. John Harvey is fourth. Graham Crosby is fifth. Dick Johnson is sixth.
To give you some idea as to just how good the development's been on the Volvo, they've pulled some 2 seconds out of the car in the last 12 months from its last visit down here, and we can see how well it's performing now as Francevic has a look on the outside of the Nissan. George watching his mirrors, as you can see. Now Francevic has a dive for the inside, back to the outside again. It's a game of cat and mouse, and it remains pretty much as you were as they come back out of the turn. And I think the thing that shocked everybody about this Nissan, Michael, is the fact that it really is a very quick motor car. There was no doubting the fact that the Volvo was unbelievably fast in a straight line, and I think there's finally another car out there that can equal it.
Well, it's certainly showing here. Peter Brock sitting just back behind them. He's probably about all 5-6 car lengths to Harvey, another 5 or 6 back, then 5 or 6 to Crosby, and a similar gap to Dick Johnson. That's the pattern of the race so far. And Jim Richards well and truly off the pace here today. On the leaders, he would probably be all 600 or 700 metres behind them. There's our third place driver, Peter Brock, his last race in Australia before he joins Alan Moffat, who's already in Europe, for their opening bout of the European Touring Car Championship at Monza in 2 weeks' time. Peter Brock, of course, is a man who has got a tremendous reputation. Bathurst, Sandown, the European Championship hopefully this year. George Fury being harried by Robbie Francevic's Turbo Volvo. They're coming up on John Smith's Corolla. It's taken them quite a while to gain on Smith, so Smith's setting a good pace in the smaller Toyota Corolla. Being the obliging driver that he is, I was going to say he's going to open the door up and let them all through.
Well, they've found quite some time in that vehicle as well. Smithy's around about 3 or 4 seconds faster than he was here last year. And
yes,
he now lets the top guys through. A thorough professional. I've got the clock on George Fury again. We'll just see how those lap times are coming along. It was a 61.1 the last time that we looked. And do not discount Peter Brock in this battle. He's still looking very good. This track not nearly as tyre sensitive as Amaroo Park. Francevic lurking all the time, just waiting, I guess, for Fury to make a mistake. Out of the left-hander and back down this very long right-hand kink, Castrol Straight as they call it. And watching the clock, we'll have a look and see how that time is, as I said. And Fury goes through again, 61.1, so maintaining the pace that he set up in the opening laps. Still some fuel to burn, and tyres will now be operating very well, so I would suggest they'll get right down onto the 60s and perhaps even crack a 59 with the sort of pressure that Francevic's got on at the moment. And check this gap between Francevic and Brock, because in fact I think Brock is closing, and it's 1.8 seconds. You can see the different wheels on the Commodore for this second round. BBS spoke wheels.
Here's Peter Brock out of the 05, and Brocky, of course, a winner at Bathurst 8 times. He's won the Australian Touring Car Championship in 80, 78, 74, third in the 85 Touring Car title, and winner, of course, of the 86 Wellington 500. Car number 10, Robbie Francevic, in the last corner is just edged by George Fury to take over the lead. There you can see one of the BMW 325s that Francevic has already put a lap on, separating himself and Fury. That drops George back into second in the field. Peter Brock is still close at hand, running in third. But Francevic has taken a little longer to take the lead in this race. Of course, he led lap for lap all the way last year to win the Symmons Plains round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. But he's in front. We'll be able to see now whether George Fury can in fact pull back that gap, or whether maybe Fury was just holding up the Volvo. in the tighter parts of the course.
Well, the gap is now starting to open, and I'm about to put the clock on Francevic as he goes by, and Fury will fall very quickly into the clutches of Peter Brock if he's not careful. There's 1.5 seconds separating Francevic and Fury, and I'll just check the gap between Fury and Brock, because Brock is really mobile at the moment. We say mobile in the Mobile Commodore, it's been hard to get out.
There's Robbie Francevic, car number 10, and as Neil has just said, he's opened that gap over George Fury. There's Brock.
It's 1.2 between Fury and Brock.
And just behind Peter Brock, of course, his team partner John Harvey. And they've reached half distance now. There's Fury going through. Brock is the next one. Then one of the 325. Crosby goes through as well.
And Crosby getting closer to the back of Peter Brock. Dick Johnson, the one who's falling down through the field. So there is Fury, and can he hold second position? You can see it is half race distance, lap 20 of 40. And the thing that is a little bit of a worry with this Nissan is the fact that the car is set up with a very low ride height, extremely hard springing, and as George said yesterday, we're still not happy about the amount of oversteer that we've got. The car is extremely taily. We've seen a couple of examples of that already, and it does tend to cook up back tyres, and when that happens you get to half to two-thirds race distance, and anybody who's still got tyres in good shape can give you a very hard time. Clock on Francevic at the moment. We'll see when he comes underneath the bridge what sort of lap time he's putting in, and a 61.1, so that seems to be the popular time of the day. So Francevic has remained consistent.
So Robbie Francevic in car number 10, the winner here at Symmons Plains last year, and he now leads the Australian National Line Cup. Fury is in second, Peter Brock still third. The Australian Touring Car Champion Jim Richards in car number 62, the JPS BMW 635. Hasn't been the best of weekends for the JPS team, nor for Jim Richards. Of course, the eighth fastest qualifier for this race, and still running 7th. On the road at the moment, and we haven't seen Jim that far back. Well, I can't recall how long ago. He didn't have a great race here last year. They had problems, but it's been a long time since we've seen Jim Richards so far off the pace with this car, and of course the Volvo is increasing the lead all the time.
Well, it was in fact this round last year that Jim had all his problems. He finished in 5th position at this championship round in 1985. They had quite a few problems with the car. I think one of the strange things that happened was they broke a gear lever, as my memory recalls. Yes, in fact it was. I've got some notes here. It was a gear lever that broke in the Richards car last year. And that's a problem that's been plaguing a few of the cars, including Graham Crosby's car last weekend. But poor old Jim just does not have the brake horsepower necessary at the moment to match it with the V8s. Like this car here, Dick Johnson's car, although the BMW about midway through the year does get some more components homologated by the Bavarian boys, and it will be getting back up there rubbing elbows, I'd say.
There's Dick Johnson, car number 17, carrying our race cam, and I think Dick would subscribe to the old theory that nothing beats some horsepower. Right, Dick?
You couldn't say a true word, Mike, I tell you. I tell you what, the only thing I should add to this motor car now is a radio, I think. We'll stick her on stereo 10 from Brisbane, and we'll just have a listen, I reckon.
Well, tell me this, looking ahead to what perhaps might be around the corner for Ford followers that follow you throughout the season, so you're having a bit of a battle in horsepower. What good news can you give them, any?
Well, possibly the fact that when they do homologate the Sierra, we could be looking a little better than what we are now, because it's a turbo car like the Nissan. Same configuration, basically.
What are your thoughts then on the way that the Nissans have been able to come out and put a car on pole for 2 consecutive rounds?
Well, actually, I expected that, really, because the car is very, very quick, and I reckon will continue to be so and just get better and better every meeting, because they have the right ingredients.
And what about of Jim Richards, who doesn't seem to be having a good weekend? I mean, he gave you a terrible time last year, and of course this year you have a situation where you're very, very competitive against Jim.
Well, what actually happened, Mike, is the fact that the bits and pieces we were supposed to get in January last year, we never got till August because of a little typographical error that they made in the paperwork. and hence we've had it since August and became a lot more competitive. But if we had had what we got now for the Touring Car Championship last year, I reckon we would have been pretty close to winning it.
And what are your thoughts on this particular circuit, Dick? A good one?
Mate, I reckon it's a ripper, but it's a circuit that you really like a lot of horsepower. And it's a good circuit to drive. It's very, very hard on brakes. It's not so bad on tyres. So, you know, all round, it normally gives you a decent sort of a race.
Well, the reliability factor of the Mustang must count in your favour, because you finish all the races and you pick up points.
Well, the thing is, Mike, these races should be 500 Ks. I reckon I'd be looking better, eh?
All right, Dick, thanks for the chat. We'll follow your progress a little later in the field.
Thanks, pal.
Graham Crosby, of course, we've been following as well during the race today, and here he is closing up behind John Harvey in number 3, the second of the dealer team Commodores. And he has been the surprising kid on the block over the last 2 weeks. Robbie Francevic was the scene stealer last year. It's Graham Crosby's turn this year.
I think he's done a tremendous job for a relative newcomer. Of course, he drove the BMW 635 late last year in the New Zealand Touring Car Championship, and then we saw him early this year in the long distance races over there. Switched to the Commodore. This is the ex-Ray Smith, Denny Holm AC and B Commodore, a car that was originally built and prepared by Peter Brock and their Mobile Holden Dealer Team Special Vehicles division in Melbourne. And now Graham and his sponsors, Trans-Tasman Insurance and Bob Jane T-Marts, have picked up the car. And as he said to us earlier on, by hook or by crook, he'll be there for the entire 10 rounds of the championship. And look at this at the moment, right up onto the back of John Harvey. Oh, locks a brake on the way in. He was telling me yesterday that he was trying to use third gear through that left-hand turn onto the straight, whereas Harvey and Brock were coming through there in second gear, trying to keep the car smooth and silky, a bit easier on tyres. And I think that our 2 guest commentators are going to have a scrap here in the very near future.
Yes, John Harvey running there, 4th on the road. Right behind him, Graham Crosby in car number 2. And Crosby's pulled that gap back on Harvey in the last 5 laps. He is getting much, much closer. Down through the fast part of the track, the Goodyear sweeper. There's Crosby. Car number 2, very close this time to John Harvey's. A battle under brakes into the left-hander at Coca-Cola. Dealer team car gets out of there very, very smoothly indeed. And Crosby's quick through the tight sections of the course. Here he comes. It's the tightest part through here of the Symmons Plains track, 2.41 kilometres in length. Laps 30 of 40. 40 laps, the distance of the Australian National Line Cup, round 2 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Crosby, car number 2, getting closer, but Harvey, of course, driving superbly in the number 3 car, still running, of course, in 4th place, and Graham Crosby is in 5th. Race leader, of course, still Robbie Francevic in car number 10, the Mark Petch Turbo Volvo. Peter Brock and George Fury still dicing in this great scrap as Johnny Smith in number 16, the Toyota Corolla, allows through John Harvey and, of course, car number 2, the one driven by Graham Crosby. Up over the Mazda hump. Now, Johnny Smith fits in. Stays close to them through this part of the track. As soon as they get onto the horsepower areas, of course, the V8s go away. Recapping the race for you, Robbie Francevic of New Zealand leads in the Volvo. George Fury in the Skyline is in 2nd. Peter Brock is 3rd in the Commodore. Back at Symmons Plains, and Peter Brock has got problems with 05, the Mobile Commodore. Laying an oil slick out, and Brock is slowing. He's going to the pit area. Number 05 holding down 3rd place for most of this race, and in he comes.
Wretched luck for Brock in the first 2 rounds of the Australian Touring Car Championship. An enormous cloud of smoke from behind the car. It did appear to be running quite well. Oh, they've got a fire in the engine bay, so it's losing oil everywhere, but it would appear to be just a leak or perhaps a seal blown, because the thing was still charging along very nicely. He didn't appear to have lost much time to George Fury. But it's a busy scene there in the dealer team pits at the moment. Not the sort of thing you want to be fiddling around with in a sprint race, I'm afraid. So bad luck for Peter Brock in the Mobile Commodore. Obviously, the new combination of 17-inch tyres and rims was working well. Brock was on the pace behind Fury and starts it up again. We'll keep an eye on them and see what they're going to do. What is he doing? Getting in, getting out. It's running. A confused scene. Pouring out smoke from the left-hand bank. Turn it off. No, I'd say it's curtains for Peter Brock. So the King of Moomba won't be crowned this weekend.
Well, bad luck indeed for Brocky, who takes the helmet off. Would love to have won here today, or at least put a little more pressure on the turbo cars that are running first and second. It's been a hot run for Brocky here at Symmons Plains. He walks back, takes a look at the car. There's going to be no win for the Mobile Commodore team here today. The man looking good at this stage is Robbie Francevic in car number 10. There he is, entering Coca-Cola corner, still with a gap of probably 150 metres over George Fury in the Nissan Skyline. The car running very, very strongly indeed, as it did at Amaroo Park last weekend. The only thing that went off on the Volvo, the tyres in the final 10 or 12 circuits. Then, of course, Jim Richards came on to put the pressure on him. Francevic went on to win, and he's looking very good here with the laps running out.
He certainly does. I've got the clock on him once more. We've still got George Fury, of course, in second place now, about 7.5 seconds in arrears. So Robbie Francevic looks like making it 2 out of 2, and not only that, a repeat performance from last year. And as Mike suggested before, there are rumours flying left, right and centre at the moment regarding the Volvo team. All kinds of speculative deals. But the rumour is, I think, that the team will announce something fairly shortly, and the plans appear to be quite big.
Here's that scrap still continuing between John Harvey and, of course, Graham Crosby, coming up to put a lap on one of the BMW 325s. There's Crosby going through, and they put a lap on Gary Rogers. But despite everything that Crosby's been able to throw at John Harvey, he still hasn't been able to pull back that gap of about 25 metres. It's been going on and on for the last 10 or 15 circuits. There's Harvey in car number 3. He, of course, has moved to 3rd on the road. 4th on the road is Graham Crosby. And then, of course, in 5th place,
Dick Johnson, followed by Jim Richards
in the Mustang.
And just out of curiosity, I had the clock on Robbie Francevic that time through, and the lap time was 61.7, so he's dropped off the pace by about half a second, but still quite comfortably in the lead. And John Harvey looks like picking up more points. And one man who'll be picking up points at the moment is John Smith in this car. It's a Class A car, 2-litre vehicle. As John described it, it had a birthday prior to the start of this year's championship. They've done a lot of work on the car. They've taken some 30 or 40 kilograms out of the car, picked up about 25 brake horsepower, and according to a little bit of mathematics that we did last weekend, had John been driving in Amaroo Park, he probably would have finished in around about 9th or 10th.
Castrol straight, Robbie Francevic, car number 10, the final lap as he makes his way down towards the Goodyear sweeper, and he's opened that gap all day over George Fury. Robbie Francevic, who won this event last year, and he's looking very, very strong for 2 out of 2 to start the 1986 series. Fury, about 200 metres further back on the road, runs in 2nd place. John Harvey is in 3rd, Graham Crosby is 4th. And there's Robbie's wife. Mrs. Francevic would be very proud indeed of her husband today, coming up to the Mazda hump for the final time. The big crowd here at Symmons Plains giving him a tremendous reception as he makes his way into the switchback area and comes out of Australian National Line corner. The hand is out the window. Francevic strikes 2 from 2 out of the Australian Championship Series for 1986. A great drive from Robbie Francevic. There's the gap back to little George Fury from Albury, and he takes 2nd spot on the road today. And 3rd place will officially go to John Harvey, coming through there at the moment. Graham Crosby behind him. And then, of course, Dick Johnson and Jim Richards. Well, a great second round of the Touring Car Championship. We've seen plenty